Hey gang, thanks so much for joining us. This is Jen McDonough, also known as the Iron Jen. I am the 48 Days Connector, and we are really excited to have you join us this week for our Ask a Coach series, where we have my good friend and awesome coach, Kingsley Grant, joining us. Kingsley Grant empowers people to live their best life regardless of their past or present issues. He is a motivational speaker, corporate trainer, licensed marriage and family therapist, certified transitional and relational coach, host of the Success Caribbean Style online radio podcast, and a published author. He is a contributing writer to Huffington Post, The Good Men Project, Addicted to Success, and Cura. He is the president of Helping Families Improve Inc. and Kingspire Communications. Kingsley Grant, welcome to the program.
Jen, thank you so much. It's a delight being here. I am in for a treat just by being here with you. Thank you for having the opportunity, give me the opportunity to be here and share with you and those who are listening in.
We're delighted. Well, we're talking this week, about midlife transition, and I know this is a topic that you are very passionate about. Do you want to kind of give us some background on it,
Yes.
and we'll go from there?
Sure. I start with many times people in this stage of life called midlife. And, obviously people say, well, what's midlife? I said, midlife it's all relative. I was speaking to someone recently who said, my dad died at 66 years old and they were 34 years old. They said, well, for me, I'm in midlife. So it all depends on how you look at it. But for me, Jen, in my late 40s, decided to go back to school. So for me, the whole idea of doing things in this stage of life, which I believe is the best stage, because now you know things that you didn't know before. You have the experience, the expertise, and the opportunity to know what works and what doesn't, for the most part. Do something now at a better stage. So when I went to school at 46 years old, 44 years old, thereabouts, I was better prepared to go back to college and get my degree than I was 20 years earlier. So I think this is a fabulous, incredible stage of life to do whatever it is you feel that you want to do in life. I mean, there's no better time.
Now, Kingsley, some of us may be watching and going, really? After 20 years, you just dropped what you're doing, no fear, put on your Superman cape and went. Was that the case, or did you kind of struggle along the way, kind of with maybe uncertainty or fears?
Oh, yeah. Jen, I was in where I worked. I worked for the same place. I was in there for 21 years. And when I decided that, I felt the need to do something that I really love and was most passionate about, I decided, how do I do that? Because how do you walk away from a 21-year experience? People who have now become like family, right? So it's a struggle. So it's prayer, it's counseling, it's talking to my wife, it's really wrestling it's 18 months it took me to make a decision to walk away. So when I took my resignation letter and handed it to my boss and say, hey, he was in disbelief. No one could believe, because there's I wasn't having a problem. I wasn't even going to be fired. So yes, it took me 18 months. Now, it may not take some people 18 months, but it took me 18 months because I have been there for 21 years. Same place, same people, we're like family. But I felt this nudge. I need to feel I was living a more fulfilled life and tap into my potential. And I know I would not be able to do that. And I didn't want to look back and say, what if I had only? And to avoid that, I had to make a decision. And that decision was to resign and step into what it is I'm now. Of course, as time has happened, where I've evolved, but I began my journey that in 2008, it all came to, for me, it came to being where I started that whole journey.
Kingsley, I know you work with people who are in that midlife transition, and you're coaching, and you do quite a bit of speaking around that. What do you think some of the fears that people face that are going through that midlife transition? Because I know Dan gets asked about this a lot on the podcast, and it may come in different forms. Hey, Dan, I'm 40 something, 50 something, 60, 70 something, whatever it is. And and I know for me, I wanted to say, I'm whatever age, I can't change. We all have our excuses or our burdens or our fears. Can you share what some of those are that you see maybe as trends or common things?
Yeah, I think that one of the most regular fears I've heard is, what if it doesn't work and I'm gonna squander what I have? So, for example, people are holding on to, like, they have some, and don't get me wrong, I don't mean don't throw everything away. You want to be careful about this approach, but I think the idea is the fear of what if. What if it doesn't work out? My thing is, what if it works out? Secondly, staying where you are, being unhappy or unfulfilled, you will have the fear of possibly dying, in your condition because you did not do what it is. And I'll give you a case in point, Jen. For me, in 2008, right, 18 months prior to that, I know I should have been making a change. In 2008, after I resigned in June, 6 months later, I was going under the knife with a quadruple bypass surgery. Now, I would not say the reason for that only is stress, but I can tell you a major part for me was stress. I was so stressed on my job that over the last 2 years before I resigned, it's one day after another, stress, stress, stress. So if I was to say, and what if, I could die on my job because I felt that I had this conflict, this inner turmoil. I was not fulfilled and doing the things that could really bring my life in an excitement or potentially what God has for my life. And so my thing, what if it works, number one, and the fear of losing everything. I'm simply saying try small dosage, small bites. Don't just dive off and say, parachute now, open up. Just look at, okay, what can I do? What's that one small thing I can do? So that's a major fear. Second fear I find is that what if I lose what I now have? For example, status, my position. I'm going to give that up. So my identity is in that thing I do. So the fear of who am I now if I don't do those things anymore? So that is also something that holds people back because they can only see themselves in what they do. And that becomes who they are. So the fear of losing that even holds them back where they are.
Kingsley, I've heard you tell a beautiful story of the graveyard story. And, every time I hear it, I'm like, oh man, that just touches you. And it kind of makes you think, wow, that is the reason. Would you mind sharing that? Is that too personal? Here I
No,
am
it's
putting
not.
you on the spot. I'm like, is that too personal? Would you share?
After you tease everyone about this story, now they're like, what story, right? Yeah, but in 2011, my mom, who had died, she had cancer, so she suffered for a while. But my mom was a teacher all her adult life. But my mom, prior to her death, told my sister that she wanted to be a nurse, right? And that nurse died inside my mom. The graveyard story is this. My idea of this, that the graveyard have so many people who, like my mom, have taken that dream to the graveyard. The graveyard is now very wealthy because there are songs that have not been sung, books that have not been written, business that have not been started. And I'm thinking that I don't want the graveyard to become any richer. So my fear of not doing something is not going to allow me to take my dream to the graveyard. It doesn't need any more riches. It has enough. It doesn't need mine. So every person I come in contact with, my whole passion is don't take your dream to the graveyard. It does not need any more riches. Let it become poorer by you not bringing your. So my mom did, and her dream of becoming a nurse never was experienced, and the graveyard became richer when she died. My passion is to not allow myself or anyone I come in contact with to let the graveyard become any richer.
Oh, I love, love, love that story because it's so rich and it makes you really think, wow, Kingsley Grant, I know some of us are sitting here and we're like, wow, that's a really cool story. But listen, Kingsley Grant,
Yeah.
I, for whatever reason, I'm sitting here I know either I'm no longer meant for the position that I'm in. Maybe it was something that I loved to do in my 20s, 30s, whatever age, 40s. But due to change, maybe it's change in my own self. Maybe I've kind of grown past that, or maybe the company has changed and moved on. Maybe the culture has changed. One thing that's definite in our society is change is always present, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
what do you say to that person who has maybe, oh gosh, change is hard?
Because I think they're relying on on the security of what they have to always be there. And I find that if there's somebody who have that decision on your life, or something have that decision on your life, you're not in control. So there's no guarantee that what you now have and you think you have, the security of that is going to be there tomorrow. How many people who have a job change, a job shut down, they have no control of that. Someone else is deciding how, when, where, what, and all of that. I don't want to have someone, for the rest of my life. What if that person was saying, okay, I'm banking on this, which I now have to always be there. The question is, what if it's not there tomorrow? Then what? You would now have to try to do the best you can and find a way to somehow make life happen. I'm simply saying, and I'm just simply putting that out, why not try to do whatever you would have done then? Why not do it now? Why not begin to tease out the idea and see what would become of that?
It's hard to
That's my,
think for some of us, our job's going on without us, but in
yeah.
truth, we're gonna. I think Dan has said this before, and
Okay.
Kingsley, correct me if I'm wrong. That regardless, you're going to lose your job someday. Either one, you'll be fired or let go.
Mhm.
Two, you'll
Mhm.
retire, or three, you're going to
Yeah.
die. Eventually, sometime that is going to be cut. But I kind of wanted to touch on. You mentioned earlier some things that you had, people that you had relied on. How important was that support group in bringing those people into your life? Who were they, and how important did that play a part in that midlife transition?
Great question, Jim, because I find that had I not have people like some coaches, mentors, Dan was one of those persons at the later part of my, I joined his coaching program, but that only helped to solidify what I had decided to do earlier on. So it wasn't that at that beginning stage. But I find reading books, number one, for me to expand my mindset, because what happened is most times where that midlife person is a limited belief. They believe in the scarcity, that there's not enough. I don't have enough time. I've lived. But here's what happened. I want to mention this is very important, Jen, because if you do the math, and where say a person is 48 years old, they really did not start doing their adult life work until they're about 19, 21, thereabouts, right? So now they've only done, say, 27 years of really solid work, and they're now where they're at the 27 years. So they're 48 years old. You add another 27 years, so now they're at 75. So imagine all they've learned in that 27 years. Now they know what works, what does not work. Wouldn't this be the best time now to now take all that experience and energy and the next 20 years just go full blast, because you're more matured, you have a sense of responsibility, you're not as giddy and crazy as you were much. So imagine if you did it in all your crazy years, accomplish all you've done now, what can you do, right? So here's what happened. Having people around me who I now see doing certain things that I want to do, I ask them questions. I read, I listen to podcasts, I just expand my mind, change my circle, because that's so important. If you are around people who only quack like ducks and you're an eagle, right? You're going to become and feel like you're a duck yourself when you are an eagle. Midlife is eagle time. Fly, baby, fly. Don't sit quacking as a duck.
Kingsley, I love that. Tell me, how can someone know that they're ready for that transition? How do you know the difference between, am I running to see if the grass is greener on the other side someplace, or am I truly ready for transition, or should I just stay?
You know, I find, Jen, that when you're able to do something other than what you're doing right now, time go by and you don't even notice that. You can't wait to wake up to do it. When you're in that zone, you feel like there's something electric. There's an energy, there's an adrenaline flowing. And you're like, what? It's midnight already? I just started. that's, that's your passion, right? So if you are like, oh, I got to go to work, and that's a sign you are possibly at the end. I need to start doing something. That's where I was. For me, it's like, oh no, I got to go back and work. But when I was doing what I'm currently doing and I'm most passionate about, oh my goodness, you could not pull me away from that. I don't want to eat. I don't want to sleep. I don't want to stop. That's when I know I need to be doing something else.
Yeah, and you can just picture that person, and I know I've been there too, where you're just like, oh, when is my next 15-minute break? And you're just, those minutes can seem like hours. I'm not sure if anyone else listening in that has had that, but certainly feel free to chime in the chat session on any of this stuff. So would you suggest folks listening in, Kingsley, just go ahead and up and quit that 9-to-5 job to start that entrepreneurial journey or their business? Do you have any guidelines for that?
Sure. In my book, The Midlife Launch, when I successfully pursue your dream without giving up what's most important to you, I talk about the very same thing. Is to say, what if I tease out the idea? First, for me, I know that I wanted to do, my business was counseling at the time. So I started out with the whole idea of therapy. So I know for me, I needed to go back to school. So while I was still working, I would go to school part-time. Once I've done that, I began to then see a client here and there, one client here, one client there. So I began to see how I enjoyed that, but also I made a few dollars. I'm thinking, okay, if I get 2 clients and 3 clients. So I didn't just leap the first day. Over time, I began to build out this idea and see if it was workable, see if it was in any way something that could help me and bring in the kind of income I need at some point. So I test out the idea to validate the idea. And so I would recommend to a person listening right now, what is it you may want to do? What if you look for the smallest part of that and start with that? Maybe it's reading a book. Maybe it's listening to a podcast. Maybe it's expose yourself to a network or a mastermind. And that is where you begin to tease out and say, okay, let me try and see what might work. I find that's at midlife, it's safer, it's less riskier, and so you feel at least more managed. It's more manageable.
Kingsley, would that be the first step that you'd recommend for someone that kind of wanted to do what you did, or in the people that you coach? Do you have kind of a process that you take them through?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you asked the question because I've created a 3-minute video, right? It just simply say, what is your passion? So I walk a person through, and it's free. Anyone can have that, and I made a page available for them to go and get that. But help them to identify what the passion might be. So what happened is, I know I have a whole bunch of things I want to do. So I would say to the person, kind of narrow it down what it is you may want to do. Okay, so if it's like, I want to be a speaker. Okay, so let's start with that. Is that the most passionate thing? So as Dan would talk about, Dan would say, is where wisdom meets passion. So do I have the talent for that? Is there a market for that? So if I can find those 3 things and align them, then if I start with that and see where, okay, it begins to make sense to me, and possibly a coach that would be helpful, or the video I described is free. They can have that video. At least something to identify where their strength is, what they're most passionate about. So I would recommend that the first thing they need to do is identify what is it they're most passionate about. Is there a market for it? And do they have the talent or the skills to do what it is they're saying they're passionate about?
Love it, Kingsley Grant. There's so many questions I wanna ask you, but I know we're kind of limited for time, and we're really cramming a lot. Basically, we're cramming. You do these as workshops, full-day workshops. I know you've had some recent live events; those are so exciting. But we're basically condensing this. So if you guys have questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. I'm going to ask Kingsley one more question here, and then I am going to be on the lookout. If you have questions that you want to ask him directly, go ahead and unmute yourself, and I'll look on the board. If you're calling in, just hit *6. If you're on the computer, it's in the lower left-hand corner. There's a mic or there's a microphone thing. Kingsley, Well, actually, we're going to go right to questions because we've got one now. Susan asks, exactly how do you discover your passion? You touched on that a little bit, but let's dive deeper into that.
It's a great question. I said I have a video. It's free. It's this how to do exactly that. But let me just kind of walk it through really quickly here. So I would say write down all the things that you felt you're most passionate about, because you have a number of things. Then you look at the list and you begin to compare. For example, say I have 10 things on the list. I take the first thing I have and compare that with the second, third, and I walk it all the way down and see if it holds true. That if I compare one against two, and one still holds as a true passion, and then hold one against three, and it still holds, one against four, and you begin to push all the way down. And if the one holds all the way down to the 10th one, that is one of your strong passion. So you put that into a second column called, because you're going to try to take 10 things and make it a three-thing column. So I look at my second thing and compare it with my third and my fourth. I know it's kind of hard to describe in an audio fashion, and that's why the video is available. But you compare 2 against 3, 2 against 4, 2 against 5, and if 2 holds true, you put that now in the second column. So you now have 1 and 2 as 2 strong passion. And you do that and find the third most passionate thing in the remaining list. Once you've come up with the 3 things that you're most passionate about, you take a step back and look at those 3 things. And you ask yourself the question, if someone held a gun to my head and I had to choose one of those 3 things, I must choose one of those 3 things that I could do, which one would I choose? That's the one you want to start with. Does not mean you may not come back to the other 2, but at least it gives you a chance to start, and then you take that one thing and ask a question. Do I have the talent for that? Is there a market for that? And the answer is yes. So I'm passionate, there's a talent, there's a market. I start with that and see where it leads me. It may not lead me too far. I may have to come back to the other 2 and pick up something else. But you're safely navigating without jumping up with one thing and running with it for all these months and months and months and realize I don't have the passion, or there's not a market, or I'm not skillful at doing that thing. So I hope that helps, but it's hard to describe in an audio fashion. It's more so if I'm going to do my workshop or the video is available, they can see exactly how I'm describing it here.
Oh, I love it. Garrison, I see you're unmuted and RM iPad. Garrison, if you have a question, go ahead for Kingsley.
I don't really have a question. I was driving, and then I got off driving mode, and it wasn't muted. So
you're just fine. I'm going to go ahead and mute you so I don't call on you again. That. No, you're fine. Thanks for joining us. RM, did you have a question? I see you were unmuted, but not sure if you meant to be, or I'm assuming that that you didn't have a question. Let's see. Let's see. We've got a question. Love your message of optimism. Why is the fear? Why is the fear you have now, midlife, different to the fear you had 30 years ago? I think it's what fear do you have now? How is that different from the fear you had 30 years ago? Great question, by the way.
Yeah, it's great. The fear that I don't get to do all the things that I feel in my heart I need to do. So it drives me to go after that. So the different fear for me right now is not so much now about, well, what if this doesn't happen? My fear is, what would happen if I don't now pursue and go after those things with everything I have and throw all I have behind it? That's my fear. Why don't I do that? So it's a different fear, but it's one is looking back, one is looking forward.
Oh boy, that is a powerful twist how you put that. Oh boy, that's just powerful. I love it. Yeah. Sonia asked, do you find it helpful to use Dan's spiritual gifts survey to be helpful in coaching?
Yeah, I find that in any kind of assessments, any survey, it only helps you to inform you. It's not being used to necessarily. It now tells me this is who I am. It only informs you and helps to solidify and reinforce or validate something for you. So it's good. They're good tools, but the tools does not tell you this is who you are, and that's a very important difference. People now, because I use a tool, this is who I am, and they lock themselves in a box. So the tools are only used to inform you and give you more information and what you're already building out. So yes, it's a great way, a great tool, and I love it. And I recommend, whether it's spiritual assessment or any other assessment you're using, they're all helpful tools.
Love it. Katie, I see you are unmuted. Not sure if that's on purpose or not, but did you have a question for Kingsley?
Yeah, I actually do. Sorry there. Wow, I just saw my face pop up. That was weird. Anyway, yeah, thank you, Kingsley. I really appreciate everything you had to say. I really appreciate how you work down how do you take a lot of passions, work them down to 1, 2, 3. I guess maybe let me just throw out there, okay, I'm going to turn 50 next year. I just lost my job, and there's this overwhelming feeling of I don't have time to figure it all out. I liked how you foray out a little bit, foray out here, do this. How do you find out, in a more accelerated method, I guess, is there really a market of what I'm doing or looking for?
A great question.
Dealing with that fear or that pressure of, I don't know.
It's a great question, because I find that to speed things up, that's where I so much believe in coaching, because that's where a person who comes in and say, hey, yes, that information is out there. You can go and search, but we don't have the time at this stage of our lives. Because the last thing I want to do is spend my next 3 or 4 years researching, and it's 3 or 4 more years that's gone. What if somebody who is, have done it, if I can come alongside them and they can help me and point me in that direction? So I find a coach or a mentor is really valuable at this stage. But it's somebody who have been there, who've understood what it takes. So they are thinking about, I don't want to give my time, is my resources, all those things are being factored in. And I find that those individuals who link up with a coach, and I don't mainly pushing a coaching as the only way, but I find it's as one of the best ways to really help a person in this stage of life, because they can come alongside and speed things up for that person, rather if they're trying to do it all by themselves. I'm not sure that answers your question. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
And I want to mention also, again, it's not to push I wrote my book with that very same thing in mind, because I know for me as a midlife person at 40, in my late 40s, I went back to school and get my master's degree and start my business at 51 years old. So, I know what it takes, because I've been there and done that. So I wrote my book, the Midlife Launch, How to Successfully Pursue Your Dream Without Giving Up What's Most Important to You, whatever that might be. So I realized that I would want to have somebody like me. And again, I'm not advocating for me per se. Thank you, Jen, for holding the book up, right? There's a book right there. But someone like, Dan has a whole slew of coaches who have gone through this very same thing, who he can, you can get some help there. But I find that it will be very, very helpful to at least get you started. Because once you get started and running, your experience and your expertise will take you the rest of the way.
Katie, any other questions? If so, you can certainly unmute yourself, but those were awesome. Thank you so much. Feel free to jump back in or unmute yourself, and we'll see. Mark has a question, and he says, this was a really, really good one. Do you think a person has a singular calling, or is it something that is progressive over time?
I find that progression, and you may start off with one idea, but if you find yourself evolving, and as you begin to, I want to use this idea is where God told Abraham to go from a place where he was childless to the place of childless to the place He will show him. And as Abraham began to move, he began to see more and more what God had for his life. And I find that in the moving process, you start with an idea, you may find it ends up looking different than when you first started. Everything, look at iPhone today. They released it yesterday, iPhone 7. iPhone 7 today looks a whole lot different than when it first came out many, many years ago. But they first started with an idea that evolves. So it may not look the same. So your calling may feel one way today. You start with that. Start with what you know. And as you go, other things may open up to you and lead you to people and places that you had no idea, but because you started, it now takes you there, and you realize, oh, this is more where I should be than when I first started. So I just believe, start with what you know and where you are.
Kingsley, before we get to our next question, I want to make sure for those who are watching the replay or listening into the replay, we've got it in the chat room, but share, if you could, the website address that you had mentioned the videos on.
Sure. If they go to Kingsley Grant, KingsleyGrant, KingsleyGrant.com/48 days, I have a free video and also 4 free chapters of my book for anyone who asks for it all into you right away. You'll get those 4 chapters, but also the video, access to that, and you can see exactly how I laid out finding your passion in 3 minutes or less.
Love it, Kingsley. We're going to be wrapping up here soon, but we got time for a few more questions. So if you got questions, you're calling in live, go ahead and type those in. Otherwise, unmute yourself and we'll see those. Susan asks, this is a great question. She says, I went back to school in a medical field for almost 2 years and was successful grade-wise at the top of my class, but I was told I did not have the speed to be able to be successful in this particular field. Now what? How do I start again?
Wow. So she is told. So she's I would say, what's the source? Who is it that have said it doesn't have what it takes? I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's a missing piece. Maybe it's someone who is supposed to be an expert. Well, if she feels she has what it takes, why not go? If it's her passion, why allow someone else to decide what she does?
So in this particular case, what if it's the head of the department?
So is that the only place she could work and test out the idea? Could she work someplace else? Could she take the same, if she feels so passionate about that, then maybe that person has different reasons why they're saying it. It could be, we don't know the motive and the agenda. We don't know if it's really true, if she feels that she does have it and the person is saying no. Well, we don't know if the person may feel threatened. We don't know where it's coming from. So if she feels in her heart she wants to do that, I would not let that stop me. I would try to find someplace else I can go and test out the idea. Because again, we don't know why that person is saying, is it envy? Is it feeling threatened? Is it really true?
Kingsley, I've got hilarious stories around that, but this is your thing. It's like when someone tells you no, and then you do wonder, what is behind that?
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Sonia says, I agree. Opposition doesn't mean that we're going in the wrong direction. So I love your point on who's asking, because you don't always know what's behind their motives or what they're going through. Libby asked, Susan, have you considered a different company or related company? And that's kind of what you were asking about too, Kingsley, is a different way. So that would be an option. Does that help at all, Susan? Maybe you can type something. I see Eric has unmuted himself, hopefully. Eric, do you have a question for Kingsley? Nope, he's back on mute. All right, Kingsley Grant. Well, I'm going to give it maybe 30 more seconds here if there comes a question up in the chat room or somebody unmutes themselves. I see Greg. Did you unmute yourself?
Yes, Kingsley, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Hey, I just got back from Coaching with Excellence, and I'm fired up.
Awesome.
I was wondering if what would you suggest to get some strategies to get your first few coaching clients?
I would say, number one, reach out to people that you know who may not know you're now going into coaching, and just tell them what you're doing and explain what it is exactly or who you're looking for as your ideal client, and have them possibly get the word out for you so they become your evangelist. And I would probably even ask someone who I know that fits the profile of who I want to work with, and say, hey, can I just work with you for an hour and just succeed to have some questions answered? So at least you begin to get in the habit of it and the feel of it and the flow of it, and become sharper in how you engage and interact with that person. So that they can be your test person, so to speak, that can help you build confidence, but also solidify your message.
Kingsley, I want to chime in here. I love Greg's question. You've also done some brown bag lunches type things and brought people in that way. Do you want to tell them maybe a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I also have put on event myself, and basically said, in that event, I invite the people that I know I want to work with, and they see me, they have a taste of it. Now they're like, okay, how can I work with you? So I find that you could even create that. It could be a meetup or a mastermind or just something, if to kind of get that word out. And then those individuals begin to know, like, and trust you. We're going to want to work with you.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Kingsley Grant, we are going to wrap it up, my friend. Any parting words of wisdom or anything you want to share?
I want to say that, again, go back to the idea, don't take that dream to the graveyard. Let's become graveyard robbers and robbing the graveyard of any future riches it would want to have. So if it's going to become rich, don't let it be you. Get that dream out, go after it, and live that life that you have been created to live and make an impact, because that's your responsibility. You have something that somebody needs somewhere in the world. And if they don't get it, they're going to die without that. So go and give it to them and don't wait another day.
Oh, I love your passion. Thank you so much, my friend. Tell us where we can get a hold of you. If people got questions or they want to find out more about you, where can we find you?
Sure. Thank you for asking, Jen. I appreciate the opportunity. But again, I want to make sure, don't forget, you can have this free gift, the video and 4 chapters of my book free. Go to KingsleyGrant.com/48 days and get that. And right there on my site, you see how you can connect with me. Twitter @KingsleyGrant. That's where you can start with me. And that's where I can begin to engage with you. And just kind of, if you have any question, just feel free to just ask me and we'll make it happen.
You are a rock star. Well, that is all for this week, gang. Thanks for joining us for the Ask a Coach series. If you like this, please go ahead and share the URL with others. And if you're not a member over at the 48days.net community, you're welcome to join. If you are not a spammer, if you're a spammer, please stay away. But otherwise, we'd love to have you join us at 48days.net. Thank you so much, gang. Have a good night.